Purina Mills of St. Louis, Missouri is the proud sponsor of Richard Shrake's resistance-free training, the Weanling. For nearly a century, Purina Mills has been a leader in animal science and horse nutrition. Their strong sense of responsibility to horses and their owners is reflected in the unconditional quality of their feeds. For additional information or where to find a Purina feed dealer, please call the Purina Customer Service Department at 1-800-227-8941. Jackson Horse Traders of Chickasha, Oklahoma is also a proud sponsor of resistance-free training, the Weanling. Jackson's quality stems from manufacturing horse traders continuously since 1962. Use of quality materials and expertise make their horse traders the best money can buy. Give them a call with your ideas and they'll turn it into reality. Remember, Jackson Horse Trader is one of the largest horse trader manufacturers in the nation. Quality traders, unmatched roadability. For more information, please call 405-224-6013. Richard Shrake is an internationally known trainer, instructor, and judge with extensive credentials in the horse world. He's trained multiple world champion horses in several divisions. His students have won over 40 championships and top 10 awards over his 30 years as a professional horse trainer. He was the first coach for the United States World Cup team, and he's judged major livestock shows in every state of the nation, including 16 world or national championships. Richard has been published by such national magazines as Quarter Horse Journal, Western Horseman, Horse and Rider, Equus, and Western Horse. And he does a monthly column called Bridle Wise for 60 regional horse magazines. He's written 2 bestsellers, Western Horsemanship and Resistance-Free Riding. Richard Shrake is instructed in seminars and workshops in 5 different countries around the world. He currently lives in Sun River, Oregon, with his wife Leanne and son Justin, where they own A Winning Way, producers of an instructional video series on resistance-free riding and training. It's time to introduce to you now Richard Shrake and resistance-free training, the Weanling.
I'm Richard Shrake, and I'd like to welcome everyone to our resistance-free training, the Weanling. You know, I'm really lucky. I've got some great help today, and I want to say a special thanks to my son Justin, daughter Jill, and Tara Crawford, who came over here with her filly to help us. You know, this is a very special video to make, working with the Weanling, not only because of their age, but we find that when we start out with that youngster, we're the first ones to work with him. Actually, his mind is a lot like a computer. It's very clean, it's not much in it, and today we're just going to program it, and we're going to work with him, and we're responsible for what happens. That's why it's kind of exciting to do this right and to share some of the training tips here in the video. Not only are we going to be talking about clipping and picking up the feet, teaching the pecking order and obedience, but in this film we're going to actually cover about 14 different things. I'd just like to say, sit down, get ready, you've got the TV on, and let's just start things. And this is what we're going to be covering.
First, we're going to start off on the proper selection for the Weanling. Colts versus the fillies. Sounds like a football game, but believe me, there's major training differences. Training to lead and halter adjustment will then follow that. Establishing the pecking order and obedience will then come on, and we'll get into some round pin work. Training that Weanling to lunge. Picking up the feet will come along, and then of course we'll get into some proper clipping, which is going to last this young Weanling a lifetime. Trailer loading is next. Boy, I hope it all goes that easy. Ponying off an older horse is going to be in there. You'll enjoy this. We're going to be talking about training the young Weanling to tie. You're not going to see one way but several, and then we'll get into setting up for showing. And finally, confidence building for the Weanling.
One of the things that we've got to ask ourselves when we get ready to talk about selection is the purchase is pretty important. This horse represents us. And you've just got to realize and understand what you really want. You know, you can't put a round peg in a square hole, And so if you're out looking for a pleasure prospect, you're going to need an athlete. You're going to need a horse with balance. You're going to need a horse that moves really pretty. And as you go out to select him and you watch him in that pasture, you know, the Western pleasure horse, Jill, you want it to be the one that maybe hangs back a little bit. If they all take off, you want that one that maybe isn't trying to win the race. I also find that if you've got looking for a barrel horse, you're looking for just the opposite. You want a horse with the speed. You're going to look at his breeding. You're going to look at his pedigree and say, hey, do I have the kind of speed here that's going to give me the runs that I need? And I think right there, you're going to watch him as he plays in the pasture, and you're going to say to yourself, hey, I want the one that is the leader. He's going to be out front. He's going to be the #1 in the pecking order. One of the things I've found is, and I want to really share a lot with you during this video, and this is why it makes it very special. All through this video, we're going to be using a stud colt, a filly, and a gelding. Each one of these we actually approach very different in the training. And I'm going to point it out as well as I can, but I want you to be aware, very, very aware of it. You know, the filly, as we look at her to select, she's going to look like the filly. She's going to have the really pretty head. She's going to have the clean throat latch. She's going to be balanced, but she's going to look like a lady. And we have to treat her like a lady. So as you watch us set up the pecking order, as you watch us do all of the training here, you're going to find that when we do work with the filly, it's going to be quite a bit different. We're going to back off. We're not going to be as aggressive. Once we run into some resistance, we're going to say, hold on now. If we feel it, we see the red lights, we're going to explain those to you, the raise of the head, the coming into our space very aggressively, just getting tight and nervous. We're going to stop, back off with that filly. Now we work with a stud colt, you're going to know a lot of different change. It's going to be more aggressive, we're going to take control, we're going to say to him all the time that we're working with him, we're in charge. We're going to control his space, and we're going to be covering that. Now the gelding, heck, those are really easy. That's why about 87% of the horses that are shown today, you know, are geldings. They're very forgiving. They're the kind of youngsters that when we work with, if we do make a mistake, you know, it's not a total wreck. Right now, though, I'd just like to say, make your selection not on, if you walk out into the field and look at that youngster and say, gee, he trotted over to me, he must have selected me. Well, you know, what really happened was, is this horse probably just trotted over because he's been doing it all his life and somebody's fed him there. So realize that use your mind and knowledge, and that's what these videos are all about. The more knowledge you have, the better you're going to be able to really make the correct selection. You know, a lot of times, some of us don't have the luxury of taking our weanlings and imprinting them when they're born. And a very good friend of mine is Dr. Robert Miller, who actually started that almost 30 years ago. I recommend it. And but if you don't, a lot of times these foals have a chance to socialize. They go out, and what you're going to end up is with a youngster that isn't going to be too well, as far as that goes, halter broke. You haven't had a lot of chance to work with him. One of the things I just want you to be really aware of, make sure you use a halter that's going to fit. Don't have it to where it's way down here on the edge of their nose. Make sure that it fits up in here to what we call the pull groove. Actually, a horse gets what we call a preparatory command up here. As we apply pressure to teach this horse to start to lead, as long as it's in this groove, it lets out a little endorphin, which actually keeps the horse relaxed. Now, if it's way back here on their neck, what you're going to find out is it's like almost putting a rope around their middle. So get that adjusted. Make sure you have a weanling halter to put on him, just not something you pulled up out of the barn. I like to use a couple different methods. I'd just like to go with you. Number one, if the foal doesn't really want to lead up, we use a real soft 3/4, 1 inch cotton rope. And basically, it's pretty simple. We have the mare. This makes it a little more foal friendly. Even if you've had the foal weaned, it's nice to bring the mare back in. It just keeps everything quiet. Let me make a comment right here. The more relaxed this foal is when you work with him, the more he's going to learn. especially these fillies. They just kind of open up like a little flower. And so what we want to do here is just use the mare as kind of a security blanket. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing that's going to be to where it should be a problem. So I take my 1-inch cotton rope that's real soft, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it up over the back of the foal's rump. I'm in an area here to where if the foal does get loose or we have a problem, he's not going to run out onto the road. All the gates are closed. Then I'm going to run it right up through the halter, and then I'm going to have the mare lead out, and basically all this foal's going to do is just walk forward and start to follow the mare. Now, when she starts to come back, I'm just going to take up, and this is going to bring up from the rear and keep this foal moving. Remember, anytime you go to take this foal, the first thing you've got to realize is never just tie him up. That's a good way to break a lot of necks. It's a good way to break and hurt a lot of people. It's a good way to hurt a lot of nice foals. So, number one, we're not just going to tie him up solid and walk away. We're going to have the mare here. Our first step is going to be, Jill, let's just have you lead here off in a circle. So our first step is going to be right off in a turn. Pull this horse a little bit off balance. As this tightens up, you can see right here that, let's stay over here, as she backs off a little bit, it tightens up on her rump and she comes. Now I'm going to turn and I'm going to look straight ahead as I do this. This is good. I'm not going to look back at her. Okay? So let's bring her back over and just let her stand, Jill. Now, some horses don't really respond to the butt rope. It kind of scares them. So what we're going to do is just go a little different way. And what I'm going to do this time is, instead of putting the butt rope around their rear, I'm just going to go ahead and put it through their middle and then up through the front legs. Now, what I want you to understand here is again, don't be using a lariat rope, that you're going to take the chance to where it's too hard, it's going to bite this horse, you know, and you're going to end up taking a really nice youngster here with a nice open mind and scaring him, and that's not what we want. We want to be as patient as we can. Let her smell it. Let her look at it. Take it, just drop it over her back, real slow. Keep your hand on her as you do this. Keep the other mare here. Reach under. Grab a hold. Make sure you're in an area here. Start to read her a little bit. Watch your eyes, watch your ears. If she starts a few red lights, like raising her head, resisting, this starts to scare, start going in a circle. Take it now, come right up through between her front legs. Let this come right here behind the withers. And then again, just run this right up through the nose band of your halters. And as you run it through here, all we need to do this time, again, is when we go to lead the mare, we pull her a little bit off her feet, pull her to the side rather than just straight ahead. If she doesn't come up, this will tighten up right here. But it keeps her straight. A very safe way to do it, remember, keep the gates closed, and then just kind of play with her and just let her follow. And again, you're going to notice my eyes are straight ahead, she follows me. If I go to lead her and I look back at her and go to pull her, I'm going to challenge her. So I want to look and just start to walk off and use my rope real soft here. If she panics and starts to stampede, she's out of my weight division. So what I want to do here is remember that I want to let her go a little bit and then bring her back. I think this filly's pretty okay, though. Let's try it. Jill, just come on ahead. Okay, pull. Good. 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 All right. Be patient, be quiet. Pick this rope up in your fingers, not your fist. Don't try to overpower. All that's going to do is that real quickness and tightness is going to scare, and then you're going to have a wreck.
All horses are herd animals. When there are two or more, they will establish what we call a pecking order. That just means that there will always be a leader, and then there's going to, of course, always be a follower. It's a direct line of authority. You know, it's kind of like the Army. The general being the first in line, and of course the private being last. Each horse is obedient
and follows the one above him. Each horse establishes the authority of one another by controlling each other's space. What I want to do is show you a simple exercise that you can do with your weanling that will give you complete mental obedience. You do this by controlling his space through your body language. And then it helps also to really learn to read that weanling's body language as you're working with him. The drill is called the clock drill. The first step shows you how to control your weanling's shoulders and hips by stepping to 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock until he gives you that complete mental attention and concentration. At first you will see several red lights. You know, he's going to raise his head. He won't be stepping into your space when you move. Then step 2, once you get that control, it's going to start showing you some green lights, which are chewing, dropping his head, turning his head toward you. And actually the nice thing about step 2 is you're going to see a total bonding. And of course by that time you're not even going to have to use the lead. You have his total concentration and mental control. This is what we call really the foundation of resistance-free training. Okay, now notice here we're going to move her space by again just moving her hip instead of her shoulder. Notice that the filly responds and she starts to chew, she starts to watch me a little closer, but also notice my very quiet, softer movement. You know, I do this until I can just take that lead, and a good test for this is just to put it right up around her neck. Go ahead and make your move without even taking a hold of her, and if she stays into your space, follows you, keeps walking into your space, by golly, you've got some green lights and you're getting 100% done here. You've got that mental control that just makes this a perfect bond. Here we're working with a stud colt, and we're going to just change it a little bit. You're going to notice that my moves are going to be a little bit quicker, whether I'm moving his shoulders or I'm moving his hip. You notice first I let him smell, let him say hello, rub him on the neck and on the hip. Actually, I take a pretty firm hold right there. I move just a little bit quicker. As where the filly, my steps are a lot slower. As I walk over to 9 o'clock or 3 o'clock or 6 o'clock, I square those shoulders up. I see right there, he stepped into my space, took a little bit more control, backed him off. My being able to back him with my feet, or for him to watch me, sets up that mental bond and mental control. And again, as I step away by holding my hand right there to my hip, the horse has kind of a chance. Now there you see, he turned his head, and it was his choice that time to step into my space. You'll also notice these stud colts, though, he just kind of want to look around a little bit more. And we might need to say, you know, no, come on over here. But the important thing is remember, the difference with the stud colt, you're just going to be a little more determined. You're going to ask for a little more control. The filly, you do back off a little bit more. One of the things I like to do is just make sure that you rub a lot, be quiet, use a lot of patience. I like to say that, you know, reward the performance with a nice soft pet all the time. Reward his obedience every minute that you work with him. You know, when you work with your horse in a round pen, it's just you and your horse. It takes total body language communication and a lot of sensitivity to read your horse. You establish the pecking order by controlling his speed and movement. You know, you do this with your body language. Got to remember here that the faster you move, the faster this filly is going to move off. You'll notice that I'm walking directly to her hip. We actually set up almost a triangle here. Then when we get ready to go ahead and ask for a slower movement, you'll notice that my movement moves slower, my feet slow down. I still drop my eyes and look at the response on the filly. Once you start to read this mental control, start looking for that turn of the head, looking for the chew. As soon as you start to see a little of that, walk over and rub. Then go ahead and go back and set up that triangle, move her back out, get that mental control with
sometimes faster feet, or right here we go into a reverse. Notice to get that reverse and control of the filly's shoulders, I'm going to step out in front of her. Even though she turns away into the fence, that's fine right here. I pick up my movement, my feet, raise my arms. The response is the filly responds and moves out quite a bit quicker. Do this until she starts to watch you, as this filly did right there. And then you notice that she stopped, stepped in, she's chewing, I've got a green light, she's staying right into my space, I've got a good bond. My quietness, my patience, my steadiness with her is really starting to pay off right here. You can never really take too much time at this point or rub one too much. Notice that every time my feet move, she moves. Once you get to this point, again, you've got green lights. Stud colt's going to be a little different again. Even in the round pen here, we're going to make sure that we move him off with faster feet. We get a response. We're probably going to reverse him, turn him and stop him quite a bit more than the filly. But I also want to be able to control him with that body movement. Notice my slow movement. Notice him start to respond. And then as soon as I stop, I get a little green light, a little chew, obedience, nice drop of the head. But I want to make sure with that stud colt, I want to get total mental control. So right here, I'm going to push him back out, speed him up again. In that round pen, of course, you don't have any line to him. You're doing this completely at liberty. Slow your feet down, stop. Right here, it's really important to wait. Start to read. Well, he's not sure, but I'm going to wait on him. Well, stay quiet. I got a drop of the head, so I'm starting to see a good green light. There's a big move right there. Notice him chew. He stepped into my space. As I walk away, my feet move. He walks with me. You're seeing a lot of confidence. Notice the quietness in this colt's eye, the softness in his body movement. When I go to the lunge line, all I need to do here is basically do the same moves that I did in the round pen. Only this time, of course, I've got a line onto him. I've got a kind of an extended arm out here. Again, I build that triangle. Don't be afraid to move him up a little bit faster with a little quicker feet, a little quicker step. Keep moving. Just don't stand there. Once you start to establish this, and you can get the speed, you can get the slowness through this lunge line and a feel, then again, of course, you get the nice mental control. Now, as I slow down and slow the feet, don't expect it right away. You know, you might have him go around 2 or 3 times, but you notice there, as soon as my feet stop, I let him make the decision. Turns that head, green light. He starts to step into my space. I got a little chew. Big move right there. Now, I rub, send him back out, give him a lot of space here, go straight to the hip, start to move the feet a little bit faster. And, you know, there's really nothing wrong with kind of swinging the end of the line. You're going to get a little difference here. Some of these colts are going to be a little thick-hided. And so ask your weanling to move on out by maybe swinging him. You might even reach up there and pop him with the end of the line. One of the other things you'll notice that if I do watch him, I drop my eyes. I don't have that direct eye contact. I let him take his time, lope off on that correct lead. Most of all, I stay quiet and I do a lot of stopping. That was a big move on this colt's part right there. Notice him stop, step into my space. And I just go ahead and relax him even more and build a little more rub. Stay quiet. Make sure that your hands are soft. Don't try to get too quick with your hands at this point, even with this stud colt. He's responding well. A lot of his reward is just going to be your quietness. Be able to stop him, be able to start him with your feet, be able to hold onto that line through your fingers and have that kind of a communication and a feel that the two of you are working together in total harmony. Do a lot of speeding up, slowing down, stopping. Start to read him during those transitions. This is going to be real important for you bonding with this youngster. Good turn of the head, excellent chew. Now with the filly, I'm going to give her a little more space here. I'm going to start her off a little quieter. Notice that as I start her off, I kind of lead with that left hand, even though she drops her head and starts to say, you know, I'm working with you. I don't press things here. I'm always looking to want to kind of back off. Notice the quiet little bit of a transition with a little bit of a quicker move here. There's a nice movement on her part. As I stop my feet, she stops, steps into my space. I still relax, still rub. Go ahead and go to the other side, set up my triangle. Try to keep that as soft and as smooth and as patient as I can. You know, and there's going to be times, you notice her right ear there. She kind of cocks, she wants to watch me. Rather than getting in a big hurry, trying to scare her, I stay real quiet, real steady, and just ask her again. You know, you might do this over and over several times, but don't be afraid to just have the patience to do that. I ask her to lope off. I do that again with a quicker body movement. She reads that, and I just see a real nice confidence builder there. She steps back into my space. I walk over very quietly and again rub that very magic spot right there in front of the withers.
You know, when we're teaching this youngster to let them pick up their feet and stand, one guy is going to really thank you a lot, and that's the horseshoer. Because once they learn to let you kind of get under them and work on their feet, it's just something that they'll be trained to do for the rest of their life. If you take your time, have a lot of patience, you do this quietly right now, I can promise you for the rest of this youngster's life, you're going to have a situation to where they're going to trust you and you can do anything with their feet. But if you get into a battle right now or a wreck, for the next 30 years, plan on not knowing when this horse is going to blow up or cause a problem. So take the extra time it's going to take right here. This filly even agrees with me. Okay, now to pick up that front foot, notice that Tara takes her hand and she rubs it down the shoulder so she just doesn't surprise her. One hand goes in front of the cannon bone, the other hand comes behind. As she picks it up, she stands very, very close to her, so she's not pulling her leg way out and causing a lot of undue strain to the shoulder. Now, when she gets ready to pick up the hind foot, all she does is go ahead and rub her hand back over her body, tells her that she's gonna, you know, be coming back there to pick up that hind foot. Notice this time how she brings it to her, stays underneath her, cocks the ankle bone there so she's got control of her, and again stays close. Now she wants to trim her feet or clean her feet. This is just a great thing to do to kind of let your horse know you. And if you, again, take your time and use a lot of patience, this is the only way. You're looking at something that right now will have a lot to do with this horse the rest of his life, so do it right. A horse that you can clip until he's 25 years old is worth a lot of money. Right here at this age, you know, this Weanling age, is the place to where it all starts, either right or wrong. Now you'll notice as we walk in here, we're not solid tying her. Justin's holding him, he's petting on him, he's setting up the behavior here. He's getting this horse quiet before we just stick the clippers into his face. We also don't have him in a ground tie. He's in an area here that he's kind of used to. I'm going to take a little cotton here, and as I run my hand up and get around his ear here a little bit, I just slowly stick it in. Not only does that muffle the sound a little bit, but it gets me doing something with his ears. Now, if he doesn't want to let you touch his ears and you get a red light, let's go back to our pizza thing, and what we're going to do here is just make sure that we rub him, let him not resist right here, then run our hand a little closer, then take another bite and get our hand right here, just like eating that pizza, to where he accepts our hand, get that cotton in. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing, Joe. As we turn these clippers on, as soon as he tightens up and gives us a red light and resists, turn them off. Okay? Go ahead, let's just turn them on and let him look at them and see what they're doing. Okay, now just hold them out in front of him and let him look. Good. Now you'll notice right here, we never stop petting him, we never stop rubbing on him, we never stop doing anything as far as just letting him stand there. We're giving him a lot of support. If he's a little insecure, we're not going to let that happen just because we're rubbing him. Good, take him away. Now bring him over, Jill, and just put him right here by the shoulder. And take a hold of him fairly strong. Rub him with your hand. Turn him on again. Good. Now just rub him on his neck. Okay, turn him off. Take him away. Feel that resistance. It's really worth taking your time right here. Okay, and again, Jill, let's go ahead and put the clippers back up. Just kind of rub his neck with them. Good, good, good. Now just get a little higher, a little higher, a little higher. Keep rubbing, Jess. Okay. Loosen your lead rope just a little, Jess. Don't try to out-pull him. Okay, very good. Excellent. Green lights all the way. All right, now just take him away and turn him off. You know, spend 2 weeks doing this before you actually clip this poor colt. Doesn't hurt a thing. This is just good like putting money in the bank. Okay, now take your clippers again and start up again, and let's take another bite of that pizza. Rub him on his neck real slow. Good, good. Okay, now take a hold of his halter just real easy with your hand to kind of steady his head. And Jill, if you can, just go ahead and take a hold of his ear and very slowly just go ahead and just start to trim just a little bit. And take your time, and you're going to have a horse that's going to bond with you, trust you, and let you do this for the rest of his life. But let me tell you what, if you hurt him right here at this point, you're going to be into a lot of trouble. Okay? Again, run into trouble, take him away, back off.
Trailer loading and teaching this weanling to load in the trailer properly is a very important training skill and program that should be done just right from the very beginning. And so we've got to keep in mind that, you know, safety is first and foremost. If you have that trailer set up, make sure it's in an area that if that weanling does get loose, he's not going to, you know, get out on the road or something like that. Look for your selection. Pick the best possible trailer you can. You know, today we've selected, I feel, the best in the world. That's that all-steel 2-horse Jackson trailer. And, you know, it's unlike the aluminum trailer. It doesn't make all that noise that scares that youngster, you know, for their first time to be loaded and on their first ride. So that all-steel Jackson trailer just gives this weanling a lot of confidence. Of course, when you go ahead and you're going to load him for the first time, make sure your hitch is done properly. Hook it up to your rig. Make sure that it's grounded. You know, all that trailer's got to do one time is do a little flip or a flop, and it's going to scare him bad for that first time. Notice the lowness of this Jackson all-steel trailer. Notice that we also have it set up to where we have a panel on one side. We leave the one door open, and this kind of just funnels the horse rod in. Now, right here, take the older horse. There's nothing wrong, especially when we're working with the weanling, you know, the baby, to take the older horse, put in, I can't tell you of a greater confidence builder than to do this. You know, it's going to let your weanling stay quiet. Let the old mare stand in there. Let her eat, you know. First of all, it's just going to give him a lot of confidence. Check everything out. Make sure your halter's on right. You've got a long enough lead. You know, and then don't drag him up to it first of all. Let him just walk up. Let him smell. Now here's the key. Start to get mental obedience. Notice I move the hip. Move his space. I do this through the movement of the hip or the back. Stay quiet. Make each of my moves very precise, just like you see me doing right here. Do this until he starts to respond quietly, and then go ahead and let him come on back up. Let him look. He's going to see the other horse inside. And right here, don't try to put him in. Back him off. Again, I go back for a little more mental control. Keep my hands on him. Keep him quiet. Now this time, I can take him up. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with just picking up a foot, letting him set it up there in the trailer. You know, that all-steel Jackson trailer is going to be solid. It's going to be a confidence builder for him. And then start off again, cluck to him, let him step up on in, pet him. Don't just leave him in there right now. You know, I like to load and unload, especially during this first time. I'll probably do this 12 or 15 times. I want him to be able to back out quietly, step down. I want him to be able to load in quietly. Notice my quiet moves. Right here, remember, never train with your temper. Learn to use common sense. Schooling this weanling off an older horse, you know, just teaching him to pony has so many great advantages. I like to pony my weanlings because, number one, what a great way to exercise them. And number two, what a way to teach this youngster how to handle traffic. You know, the older horse might bump him a few times, get into his space. He might bump into the older horse a few times. But right from the very beginning, especially later on in his show career or, you know, just as a trail riding horse, he's able to accept that and understand that and, you know, heck, just get used to it. It also lets you have a chance to kind of be up above him, and I think this is so important. If you've ever got on to a 2-year-old for the first time, and it's the first time he's ever had somebody up above him come down and sit down into that saddle, you'll really appreciate someone that's ponied one for a while. It's a big advantage there. Notice that Jill doesn't have this weanling tied hard and fast onto the saddle horn. You know, her hand stays out there. She's got a hold of that line in her fingers for a real sensitive feel. It floats along with the movement of the horse. It's not causing a lot of distraction, so she's getting a tremendous amount of trust and confidence from this filly. You know, when you take your time and you teach this youngster ponying, going that extra mile every time means that you're ready to meet all the challenges in teaching this youngster to pony.
You know, I've been in the horse business all my life, and if there's one spot that we see more wrecks and more injuries, and that is when we take these young babies and we just tie them up. If you do this right, this horse will always tie, always stay tied, trust you and bond with you for the rest of his life until he's 30 years old. So there's a couple things here we just want to go over. Number one, don't tie him up to something that's going to pull away. Make sure you got a hitching post or something here that's solid. In case they do get scared and there's a little bit of panic, it's not going to break away and then just end up kind of scaring them to death. Number two, still use your cotton rope, and I still like to leave it around the middle here. And number three, never just tie it solid. Just take a wrap here, and then so that if something does happen here at first, you can kind of let it out a little bit, and it's just not a complete solidness. And then just stand back and let her watch. Let her stand, let her just kind of get used to things. Maybe have a few horses go by to put a little bit of pressure on her as far as traffic, but be there with her. Don't just tie her up and then walk away. One of the real rewards in doing the videos, and you know, and actually I've been in the horse business all my life, I've really not known anything else, is being able to share with people ideas and ways to train and work with their horses that are safe, and that actually not only make the horse a better horse, but make it a little easier and kind of give the person a chance to set some goals and do things that turn that individual into a nice individual. And actually when your horse represents you, you want to just have everything down to where everything just clicks. And rather than just doing a trial and error, right here for this next step, we've taken a inner tube, tied it a little higher. We've got a solid wall, so if this filly was to jump back, she's not going to get her legs over the top of something or into something. And also, we've got a mat here down on the ground that's going to give the filly a chance to stand up on something, so if she paws, she's not going to tear her feet up, or she's not going to hurt herself if she did fall down. And we were also inside a stall where we can close the door, so if she happened to get loose or there was a wreck, we've basically got all the bases covered. We're looking out for her. She's our friend. We want to make sure that we have everything just as safe as possible and in a way that what we work with her here is going to last her for a lifetime. So what I'm going to do is just bring her over, and as I lead her up, we've got this length of rope, so if she does pull back, that inner tube will stretch just like your hand. It doesn't give her anything claustrophobic or solid. I don't think you can ever rub on these fillies too much. Right here in front of the withers, right where that mare would muzzle that foal again, it's that circular motion with the palm of your hand. It just relaxes her. Then reach back up right here over the croup, circular motion there. Those are the two kind of almost acupuncture points for this horse to bond with you. Just keep those in mind. Now again, just don't go to the house and forget her. Kind of do some work around the barn. You know, keep an eye on her. But again, keep your door closed. Keep working with her. Don't make these sessions too long. Take your time. I would say tie her for maybe 8 to 12 minutes, then let her out and do something else. But don't just leave her there all day. You know, the third step is no more than having a lead rope that's at least 3/4 or 1 inch. Make sure that wherever you're going to tie is not too low to where they're going to get a foot over it. Make sure that you don't get them out too far, that you're going to have too much distance. So you're going to look for about 24 inches here. Then as you tie this, go ahead and tie it with a knot that in case this horse goes to pull back, all you really need to do is grab a hold of this and zoop, and you've got it. And there's several ways that you can tie this.
The control and discipline your weanling learns when he's being taught to set up for showing is just going to be a big advantage later on in his training. First of all, you look for squareness and you look for straight lines. Right here we see a line drop from the point of the hip to the ground, the middle of the shoulder to the ground. As you look for him at him straight on, you should see a line drop from the middle of each quarter straight down to the middle of the hoof. If he's too wide at the base and his feet, you're going to have kind of a spraddle look. If he's too close, you can see here, it's just going to be too narrow. So we look for that straight line, and this just starts helping us start to evaluate. Teaching this youngster to set up properly, we're going to start off with a solid, firm surface to stand on, and we need to learn how to control each foot on this weanling. If, for example, we're facing him, we want to move the left hind, we pull his head toward us, and then push with our thumb through that opposite shoulder, just like pushing on the corner of a table, and that foot goes into place. To get the right hind, all we need to do is pull that head toward us again and push through the opposite shoulder, and the right hind foot then goes back into place and sets up even. When we go to move the left front, we pull the horse's head to the opposite side, bringing the weight off of it, pushing over. For that right front, again, pulling the head over here brings the weight off the right front, push directly back into place. It's real easy.
Now you're going to notice that when Tara brings this filly's head in this direction over here and applies pressure through this shoulder, that outside left rear goes back. And if she pulls her head this way and applies pressure through that shoulder, that outside rear goes back. Now, depending on how much spread you want is how much pull you're going to have here in the halter. Now, when we get ready to set up the front end, when we've got the back end to block, if I want this foot over here to go into place, I pull her weight over into this one, I tap this filly's leg, or I go ahead and take this foot, tap the filly's leg, push the weight over. Teaching your horse to set up is something that will pay off for you so many times later on, especially with this weanling. Once he learns how to set up square, do it on a hard surface, not out in a heavy plowed field, you're going to find that when you go to get off and on, if you ever go to show him in a halter class and what have you, this is great.
You know, right here is a good spot that we can kind of throw you out some challenges. We want to just show you what, you can start to do with this weanling. It's a lot of fun. Notice that Tara's teaching her just to go over a bridge, and this not only develops a bond and a trust between Tara and the filly, but it just gives her something else to kind of do here. Once we've moved her shoulders and her hip, golly, a side pass is no problem. We started this way out in learning the pecking order. Stepping over obstacles not only gives her confidence in herself, but when you take the time to do this correctly, you'll notice we started with 1, now we start out with 2, now we go to 3. When you use that approach, golly, you can teach this weanling to do about anything. You know, you can go from the walkover, as you see here, right straight into the trot over. Do it quietly. Do it slowly. Each one of these, like we see here in the bridge, not only builds confidence between you and your yearling, but, you know, when you go to do these things later on, the groundwork is all set. You know, we've moved the shoulder, we've moved the hip, so all we need to do now is just put that into a side pass over the pull. What great teaching for, say, later on in 2 tracks or side passes. Let's do a quick overview on what we've watched in the video in resistance-free training the weanling. Selection is so important. Remember, that youngster represents you. And when you start out with the right one, remember again that if you're working with a gelding, a filly, or a stallion, approach each one just a little bit different. Don't treat them all the same. Keep in mind the things that we talked about, the red lights and the green lights. Keep in mind that when you go to teach him to lead for the first time, don't be afraid to bring along that older horse to give him that little extra confidence. Right here, if you make a few mistakes, it's going to cost you later on, so take your time. Set up that pecking order. This is the first line of obedience. Moving the youngster's space gives you that mental control that sets up your whole training program. You take that right on into working in your round pen if you have one. Take advantage of it. Get control of him through your body. Start to read the red and green lights that we discussed. Look for him to respond to you. Take your time to do it correctly. When you go to pick up the feet, do it quietly, do it patiently. Remember, the guy that's going to really like you here is the horseshoer. Clipping is another big advantage when it's done right with the babies. Take your time. If this takes you 2 weeks to teach this youngster to accept these clippers, boy, it pays off, especially when you have to go to a horse show and last minute you got to really hurry. Trailer loading comes right along in the same line. That youngster that loads up without any fuss when he's a baby or even older, boy, it just not only adds value to him, but it makes your life a lot easier. Remember that ponying, be safe, be quiet. We're going to teach him a lot about being able to handle his space and being around other horses. It all starts right here when you're taking your time to pony this youngster. Time safely, correctly, to where you're not going to get into a lot of trouble. Make sure that no matter where you time or how you time, that it just takes a quick pull and you can get out of a bad situation. Setting him up is a tremendous way to teach this horse discipline and obedience. You also learn a lot about how he's put together. So this is something you can spend a lot of time on to really get to know your youngster. Doing other things with him, you know, is just the frosting on the cake. It's a lot of fun, and it's what a way to get to know your youngster and to build that bond of confidence and trust that's going to last him a lifetime. I'm going to leave you with my 10 commandments for resistance-free training the weanling. Think safety first. What are the chances of you or your horse getting hurt? Does your equipment fit, and is it in good condition? Keep your training sections short. 15 to 20 minutes is plenty of time for that young horse's mind, and he's growing bones. Worm him at least every 60 days, and if you're going to show your weanling, every 30 days. Feed in small amounts several times a day. 3 times a day for me is ideal. Set up your training sessions in a place where the ground is soft and there's not a lot of other horses to distract his attention. They should be fully weaned by 6 months. You know, 5 months should be the average. Turn them out with other foals or weanlings as much as possible. The social interaction with other horses is great. You know, let's let them become horses. Never leave them in a trailer or tied up solid by themselves without somebody being around. Keep daily, weekly, and monthly records of training, trimming, shots, and feeding. Always keep in mind, your weanling is a reflection of your attitude. If you're patient, your weanling's going to be patient. If you're upset, then your weanling will be. If you train with your temper, your weanling's going to have a temper. And I'd like to just say right now, thanks for watching this and sharing this video with me. This is Richard Shrake saying, may you always ride a good horse.